This podcast is brought to you by PLI, the Practicing Law Institute, providing resources to legal professionals and the law librarian community. For more information, go to pli.edu/librarian.
Hi, I'm Karen Osterly. Thanks for listening. As a practicing law librarian myself, I've been working in the legal information profession for 36 years, currently with PLI's Library Relations team. For this episode, I was thrilled to have the chance to learn about Chris Laut's proactive approach to identifying gaps and driving innovation. As a leader in library and information governance initiatives, Chris has tracked AI tools, created a comprehensive internet platform, and implemented new solutions, helping to break down information silos and give all professionals at Sullivan Worcester access to the right tools at the right time. Hope you enjoy our conversation. Good afternoon. This is Karen Osterly. I'm Director of Legal Research at Practicing Law Institute, and I'm here with Chris Laut, Director of Library and Knowledge Services at Sullivan Worcester. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Karen.
It's my pleasure. So my son spent about a year in Worcester, and that's how I say it. But, people that aren't from the Northeast say Worcester. What's the right way to say the firm's name?
Sullivan and Worcester.
Okay, yeah. So I was close.
Say Worcester.
I was close. And I knew you were when you were at Liberty Mutual, but if you could just talk about your library career for a few minutes, that'd be great. How'd you get into it? How'd you get started?
I got started the same way most law librarians get started. Although some, it seems, know that's their career path. But most of the people I've spoken with have said it's serendipitous. I had been working as a paralegal, and I was in and out of temporary jobs and got placed at Goodwin Procter, which is just now Goodwin.
Yeah.
And I really liked it. And a position opened up there. And, 3 weeks after I had stepped in as a temporary person, I ended up getting a full-time job there. I was there for a long time. I was there for 7 years.
Okay.
And really never fully committed to law librarianship. I didn't have a degree in it. I just had an undergraduate degree in history. So I started going to school for journalism and ended up getting a master's in journalism while I was at Goodwin, thinking that was going to be my direction. And then got this fantastic opportunity at Hemenway Barnes to run their show. And Hemenway Barnes is the oldest law firm in the United States. Really kind of a neat place, but super boutique. It's 40, 45 attorneys. And it was just a great place to learn. And eventually, at some point while I was there, I committed to the profession.
And what was their practice? It's a boutique firm. The ones I know mostly are IP, but they might be fashion law. What was their field?
They were a strong trust and estates firm. And in fact, they managed the money of their clients on top of that, which is a very unusual thing for a law firm to do.
Right.
They had a lot of deep-pocketed clients, and only in New York and Boston do they really do that. So on top of sort of normal fees, they got management fees for managing the money of their clients.
Interesting.
Very interesting place. And some of the attorneys there were just brilliant. And so I learned a lot about trust and estates and tax law.
I bet. And then when did you go to library school? During that time, after that time? And did you finish your master's?
I had started going to library school while I was there, but I was a couple of courses in when an opportunity opened up at Robes and Gray. And I didn't have the right background. I didn't have the level of education they had there that they needed there. So, I didn't send in a resume and a cover letter. And Cornelia Truby was the director at the time, and she called me up and talked to me for 2 hours, the whole time telling me how she wasn't going to choose me, and she didn't think I was really ready for the position. But she talked to me and listened to me, and I told her about my background, and she gave me a chance. And so while I was at Ropes, I completed my degree. But I was only at Ropes for 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I met Cornelia in 1989. Now, you were not there yet, right?
No, I had been working I'd been working at Goodwin in 1989.
Okay.
So Cornelia wasn't until 1997.
Well, I understand that she's left Ropes and Gray, but she's still working as a librarian somewhere in Boston or remotely.
She worked for AccuFile for a while, but I'm pretty sure she's completed that and she's just retired. But we talk every once in a while.
Well, that is
I
nice.
consider her my first real mentor. It's great to learn from her.
I can see that.
Strong capability. Somebody who, worked in academia and then worked in private law firms for a very long time. So, yeah, it was great working with her.
She was, in 89, that's when I started with Matthew Bender, but she was already a force to be reckoned with. I mean, she was a player in Boston and in the Northeast. So that you were very fortunate to meet her and have her bring you on and to have her as a mentor. That's terrific. So you were there.
Involved in ABLE, which is the Association of Boston Law Librarians.
Right.
And a non-affiliated law librarian group to AALL. However, pretty much everybody who's a member of ABLE is a member of AALL. And, I really enjoy advocating for them and becoming a member and then having some leadership positions there.
That's very modest. Weren't you president?
Of ABLE, yeah, at some point I was. Everybody, it's not hard. When I first joined it, there were over 200 people in it. Now I think there's less than 80.
Okay. So, but you went to Madison, didn't you? University of Wisconsin-Madison for your MLS?
Yeah, what a deal they had. Back then, you could do it all online.
Okay.
And because they were really pushing that mode of education, you got in-state tuition. So it was far cheaper than going to Simmons, which most people around here would go.
Right.
And it was wonderful because, I had children by then. I was working full time, so I could do things at night.
Okay. I was going to say, how did you work at Ropes and Gray in Boston and go to Madison? So it was remote, even back then. I mean, that was early. That must have been one of the first online schools or first online school programs. That's pretty cool. Well, we lived in Madison when I was 2 and 3 years old. My father was in grad school there. So I'm very fond of Madison. So then you're at Ropes and Gray 4 years, and then you went to Liberty?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was hired by the second person I consider to be, had a huge impact in my career. And that's Rodney Kalia.
Okay.
Rodney Kalia had worked in private law firms and then went there. He got a huge promotion and he needed to fill the position. So he brought me in and I was there for over 12 years.
Right. We thought you were going to be there forever. And then...
Me too.
But you know what? Things changed and you had already worked in firms. You liked firms.
Yeah.
And so then when did you come to Sullivan?
Well, so Sullivan was June of 2019.
Okay.
So I've been here for 6 years.
Yep. And you weathered COVID with them.
Great place. Yeah. I mean, everybody was in the same boat. The firm's a very caring place, and it's a good place to actually grow and take on new challenges. So I've enjoyed working here.
Good. Did you come over as director of library and knowledge services, or?
I did.
Okay. All right. So you've been in that same position for 6 years.
Yeah. But, my role is not the same as when I came.
Well, that's what I was going to ask because of the way you just said, growing and new responsibilities. What are you doing now that you didn't do 6 years ago? What have they added or what have you added or developed?
When I had been at Liberty Mutual, I took on the responsibility of the records team within the law section of Liberty Mutual. And I did that eventually here too. So I'm the head of information governance here, which includes records and conflicts. And I'm currently the chair of the Information Governance Caucus for PLLIP.
Yes.
And we have monthly meetings. And all we do is talk. I'll give like a basic agenda, and all we do is talk. It's, what are you going through? How are you managing this? And it's been really a breath of fresh air.
But also, what's working? What have you been trying that's working well? And what would you advise? So you're talking about it, but I'm going to guess there's carefully, sharing information about practices and things that are working well.
Very much so. And we're all in different situations. And all of us have different responsibilities too. So every once in a while you run into somebody that has the same responsibility. Somebody like June Liebert, who also oversees records and conflicts. There are a couple other people who do that too, especially at smaller law firms. And then I also manage knowledge management initiatives within Sullivan Worcester. And that's been really something I enjoyed tremendously.
Okay. And what does that mean at Sullivan and Worcester? Because different firms have that set out differently sometimes.
Yeah, I'm the one who defined it. So for us, it's the reuse of our intellectual capital. And if we can, to combine it with external repositories that are highly trustworthy. And then utilize that to be more effective with our clients.
Okay.
So that means it includes work in our document management system. It includes work with our intranet. It means that, I'm reviewing a lot of resources and services that integrate with some of our foundational software within the firm. And it's a lot of fun.
Cool. I'm glad. And you've spoken and you've written on artificial intelligence, legal artificial intelligence. How is that entwined with your knowledge management work at Sullivan?
Well, one of the things at a firm like Sullivan is if you see an area that there's a vacuum and there should be a drive towards either learning in that area or implementing new ideas or educating on the capabilities of certain resources and solutions that would be of high value to the firm. The firm's really open to that. So I took it upon myself to begin tracking all the generative AI tools that are out there. And I've got this massive spreadsheet. It is massive. And the great thing about it is it's changing and within particular products and solutions too. So you saw things popping up in early 2023, even before that too, but really the legal in production solutions didn't start popping up until early 2023. And now they're expanding.
Right.
You see the type of funding they're getting. There's been some consolidation too.
Right. As we go.
But from our firm's vantage point, we look at it based upon what are our specific needs? Where do we want to focus? And the great thing is there's tools in every area of the law, whether it's the practice of law or the business of law.
Right. You're very knowledgeable about AI. You've written and spoken about it. Well, does everybody in the firm use it? Is it limited in any way?
That's a very broad question. I'll give you a broad answer. I'm one of 3 heads of our technology committee. And the first thing we did is we had to come up with some sort of a form of governance. And that was pretty limited initially. We got a lot of feedback from our attorneys and where our firm felt they were. Well, we've zoomed past that way. We really need to update our policies, frankly, on that. So the firm has not adopted anything per se, but we've been trialing some things for many months, and lots of people are trialing it, and we're using it within the practice of law. And then we've done some long-term trials of other resources that they'll give you a month, and that's great. And there's a lot of feedback, and you meet with them forever. And then right at the very end, they give you the hard push to sell, to buy it, and they're selling it. And that's been both challenging and rewarding. So where's the firm? I say if you were to ask us in 2 months, I'd say a large majority of members of the firm would be utilizing generative AI for the practice of law, not the business of law. And by the business of law, I mean just the nuts and bolts, intake, interaction with clients, billing, things
Right.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say billing, back office, tech services, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. No, I remember, and you were there when we went to Denver, and it was just people starting to do work with this. I mean, speaker after speaker after speaker stood up and said, you need to write a policy. You need to write a policy. Even if it's going to change, even if it's going to evolve, you have to have something in writing about what you guys are doing so people know what to follow. And then, we heard that again last year. We heard it in Boston, we heard it in Chicago, but it's just been changing so fast. It's really hard to keep up with.
Agree. It is hard to keep up with. And in fact, in the last 4 months, I found myself being less able to manage that spreadsheet that I have. But the good news is that we really dove in and tried new things, and we know where we need to focus. Where initially it was, let's look at the full, the full spectrum of options and solutions. And now we're much more focused.
Right.
It's a little easier. So I don't have to spend as much time paying attention.
It is easier because now you know more about what's out there. You're not just sort of learning from the beginning. You know sort of the structure and what people are focusing on and what companies are doing. Do you think, we have seen some consolidation in that industry, but we've seen far more consolidation in law firms over the last 30 years. I started in 89. That's 35 years ago, 36 years ago almost. And it's just amazing with law firms, and even more so maybe with legal publishers. You remember when you started, there were like 40 legal publishers, and now there's the big three, and there's a couple of us little guys, and we're mid-size, I guess.
Maybe you're little, but you pack a punch.
Thank you.
People really like it, and
Thank you.
We did not have your CLE platform, but we do now.
Yes, last year you got it. Not that long ago.
And it was one of those things that we know we'd eventually bring it in. It just took us a couple of years before we did.
Well, you got Plus in 2020. So you are the one that brought that in, I'm sure, because you started there in 2019. And how does that go? And how did that process go? And how do you use Plus?
It was a good time to review the full spectrum of all of our legal research resources. Luckily, we had a number of large licenses that were coming up around the same time. So we took a deep dive on that. We did a ton of internal surveying, and luckily got a lot of feedback, even though the survey was longer than most people like to spend time. But they did. They responded, and that was great. And so we switched out one very large legal research solution for another one. We brought you guys in. It was really fantastic. And I'm an easy sell with PLI. The reason for it is, you guys have always had top-notch content, but now you're the way you present it, display it, make it available, your search function, is really incredible. It's a joy to use, and I think we've benefited highly from it.
Thank you. Yeah, we were able, I was not here yet, but we were able to pivot when COVID hit and, start taping things immediately and streaming things immediately. And we do still offer courses in person, and we get people to come to the New York office,
Well, the timing was good for us too, because we actually moved. So I was overseeing records and library. And we had been in the same space for 40 years. And it was just crazy how much we had, and we had to get rid of the vast majority of it. So the library was actually easier because I've done that before. I've downsized before, and I've consolidated libraries, and I have Derek Albertelli, who's brilliant at those sort of things too. And so we were able to take a couple of libraries, consolidate them into one library, get rid of 2/3 of our materials, including almost all of the print versions of PLI materials, knowing, that we had them all available on PLI Plus.
Right.
So that was part of the decision process.
Oh, right.
And then the hardest thing though was the record side of things, because we have so many physical records. Especially, we have a pretty strong estates and trust group here, and the probate folks still like their physical records and their red wells.
Got to have it in the files. And then I think in November, actually, I think you signed for the privileged membership. How's that going? You've had that a couple of months now.
Oh, you mean for the education?
I'm sorry. Yeah, we call it privileged membership. So you guys are a privileged member. That means anybody that works for the firm has access to that. So you probably know this. We've got a lot of information for paralegals, paralegal classes, for associates, for all different populations.
Well, as we roll out new tools that have generative AI in them, you guys have a ton of well-founded education courses that speak to the areas in which we want to focus. So the ethical concerns, the oversight, the basic tenets of how to, the nomenclature of it, how to search, how to prompt properly. And that's great because we have some tools that we can require our end users to go through those educational courses, and before they have access to any of the Gen AI platforms, or the platforms that have Gen AI. I shouldn't call them Gen AI platforms. They do so many other things, but they're using it as an efficiency initiative.
That is really smart. I had not thought of that as using our materials as part of your required training before they can get their hands on any GAI tools.
Yeah. No, it's great.
That is really smart.
Great.
Interesting. So I was going to ask, tools that you guys have created in the library or for your patrons, for your attorneys, library tools in general, but also library tools around AI. I was going to ask about some of your strongest or favorite, or the ones you're proudest of, library tools that you guys and you and your team have created.
Well, I would say, because I have complete oversight of our intranet, I've turned it into a library, sort of an Uber library space. And it's broken up by offices, by legal practice departments, by practice groups, integrate with our financial system. So we'll bring in financial information inside there, billing information inside there. But we've just linked to so many of our resources through there, and even down to the resource level. So not just platforms, not just particular areas within platform, but certain resources that we know our attorneys use quite a lot, and we make it available and highly visible because of that. So I'm pretty proud of that. Well, nobody stood in the way. People seem to like it. We're all about answering questions, making sure people have the right tools at the right time, and our intranet's really good that way.
Well, that's remarkable. You should be very proud of that.
Yeah.
And I hope that everybody knew who sort of put that together and made it happen and created it.
Well, librarians, I'm not particularly organized, but I'm organized enough. I know how to run a project. And so that's how I initially got involved. I ran the project to upgrade our intranet and completely tore it down to its basic foundations and then built it back up again.
Right.
And, I had folks in every one of the administrative departments and a couple of attorneys. And then I had trainers that we brought on pretty early in the process so that they could help train and get adoption. And that went really well. And now we're thinking about doing it again, which I don't know how I'm going to do that. But also on the information governance side too, we brought in new tools that work, hand in hand with our financial system, within our document management system. And those are big, large scale projects. And, they didn't go off completely without a hitch, but they went off well enough that people didn't yell at me, which is what it's all about.
And they continued to function even while you were moving them and upgrading them and changing them and having them evolve.
Yeah, we'd have like one weekend where you couldn't touch it.
Yep. Well, that's terrific. That's terrific. And so I was going to ask how your library team and your knowledge management team and your information governance team, and I imagine there's some overlap there, how they're handling using AI in research and in teaching and maybe other areas.
They're handling it well. We include our research team in all testing that we do. And they're also administrators in some of our functions that help with legal workflow, which is not necessarily always Gen AI, but there's automation involved in that. And
Right.
so they're experts at that too. So people come to them and start a project with them, and that's an area of high importance for the firm. They're also good trainers. And so, for instance, March 20th, we're going in front of the associate committee, and we're going to be talking to them about generative AI, not only the basics of it, which most of them at this stage are pretty good with, but more the type of tools that we've been looking at. And the good news is that we include all levels of people in our trials, from managing partner down to, someone like me, paralegals. And then, we try to hit as many offices as possible and as many practice groups as possible. And at all levels, all strata of people inside, their junior associates to senior partners. And by and large, people have been really open and prepared and willing to take part in our trials. Again, we're focusing a lot on trials right now, but if you talk to us in a couple of months, it'll be a different world for us.
Right. Because you're checking them out. You're giving it a test run, which each company, each program.
Much more seriously than we did, 4 months ago.
What do you predict is the future of AI in law firm libraries?
Well, it's getting rid of the silos of information and bringing things together in one way. And librarians have been doing that for a long time with, federated catalogs. The catalog is the first federated research tool out there. And I'm not, every time there's any new attorney at the firm or paralegal, I give them an orientation. Part of that is showing them how our library catalog works and how simple it is to find materials, whether it's print or electronic. And the vast majority of it at this stage is electronic. And the fact that, I can do one search here, and guess what? It's showing me things in Westlaw and Lexis and PLI Plus, in Vital Law, in, Bloomberg Tags, wherever, RA Checkpoint. And they love that. They're like, really? I mean, I don't have to know where things are? No, you don't. You can go here. But that's metadata. The next step is our document management system and all the great content inside there. And we really want to jumpstart you reusing that material as much as possible.
Yeah. Excellent. Now, you were at an insurance company, you were at Liberty Mutual. And so I don't know what they're doing over there, but
well, I'm going to Legal Week in 2 weeks, and I know I'm going to see a number of people from Liberty Mutual there from the legal department. So they're into it.
Okay. Oh, they are. Okay, good. Because I was going to say you've got client confidentiality issues, obviously, and you're in charge of records management. I mean, your overall information governance, which includes records, you've mentioned. Do you think an insurance company would need to do anything extra that a law firm's not doing? I mean, it's still client personally identifiable information. I wonder about that aspect of things sometimes because you hear about breaches, you hear about hallucinations, all these sorts of monkey wrenches.
Yeah. And I would say both industries are very alike in the sense that, we're service industries, we're kind of financial industries at the same time. And, our clients expect, top level service while also providing us with personal private information. And as a result, I think it's probably equal in the sense of, how much you need to focus on data privacy and security. And thank goodness I do not have to do that at this firm. Our IT department is fantastic at it, but it is a daily battle. And it's a daily battle they have to respond to and augment constantly. So I can only imagine what an insurance company at this stage is having to do with all their private information, really private information. Now, luckily, it's not healthcare at the place I was working at, but there's still workers. Well, they don't do workers' compensation anymore either, but a lot of insurance companies do workers' compensation. It's a lot of private, personal information.
Right, quite a bit.
Yeah.
What are some of the key learnings that you would share with fellow law librarians? You've shared a number of them already, and we appreciate that about, taking something down to the foundation, building it back up, making sure you have groups and different levels of people from lots of different offices anytime you look at something. These are key seminal ideas. What are any other learnings that you would share with fellow law librarians that you would want to share?
Yeah, well, I think there's a ton of talent in our field, and talent that's willing to give time and energy. So, getting involved at, first of all, the local level with your law librarian associations, it's just a great way to learn and get involved, speak to people who are in the same boat as you, to feel like you're a part of something, that you're not just an isolated person within a law firm that has maybe one or two people that are doing what you do, or, 5 or 6 people that do what you do, whatever that may be. And then keep on going. Don't stop. And, to me, I didn't commit completely to the field of librarianship right away. I really thought I was going to be a journalist. But once I committed, now I've worked at my local library. I've been a trustee of my local library for 20 years, and I moved to a new town in the late summer, and I'm already a trustee. Last night we had a trustee meeting, and you might as well get involved at that local level. And here in Boston, where there's the Insurance Library Association of Boston, which really meant a lot of sense while I was working at an insurance company. And I was the first librarian who was a trustee there. And I really enjoyed meeting all those folks. Most of the people who were there were, senior executives in an insurance company. And then there was me,
Right.
But it was great. We worked on marketing. We worked on, a complete revamp of their website. And I don't do it anymore. I stopped a couple of years ago. I continued to do it, even though, multiple years after I was no longer at the insurance company. But then it just got to the point where I was like, what am I doing? So let's focus elsewhere.
But I'm seeing a trend here. You like taking websites down and reconfiguring them and building them back up much better for the patron group that they serve.
Doing it at the local library level too. I did that in Georgetown, Massachusetts, and seriously looking at the Ipswich, Massachusetts website, which is there's just so much information on there, but it's hard to find. So
right,
yeah.
Be nice to have cleaner paths to that information.
Yeah, right. That's what we do. that is what we do. We spend a lot of time organizing and tagging. And so there are certain things that just make sense for us to take part in. And so within my organization, my firm, it just means that, I get involved in project management a lot more and, look at our repositories, our knowledge repositories internally is, kind of like the same way I look at our, the external knowledge repositories like PLI Plus.
I think you might have just encapsulated what we do as law librarians. I like that. So when you were new, you were a new law librarian before you even started getting your master's. When you were first working in libraries, what do you wish you had known at that time? I mean, you got to Cordelia after 4 years.
Wow. Yeah, I wish I had committed, Mary Jo Caberco was my first boss, and she was just this lightning rod with she had so much energy and she was really unafraid to work with all levels of people within the firm. I think that's something that a lot of law librarians are like, I like to read books. Well, we all do, and that's a given. But you can't shy away from being a part of the decision-making process within your entities and organizations. And sometimes you have to push to be a part of those things too. So, I always push to go to practice group lunches, and sometimes it'll take 2 years before I finally get, an invite. And then I'll get an invite and I'll go, and then they'll forget to invite me for the next 6 months. But I'll keep on pushing for that. And, the fact that, I'm both on the Information Governance Committee and part of the head of the Technology Committee, and that we can push agendas and educate is a real area of, capabilities I think all law librarians have.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like once you've decided in your various roles what's the right path or one of the right paths, you're able to bring people along. You're able to bring the firm along, in conjunction, working with other people at the firm. And that's something you should be very proud of.
Thanks. Yeah, it's there's a lot of okay with no, and just trying different angles and new ways of communicating, or trying to find out, how something will make a positive impact on somebody. And a lot of that is just, business cases, for instance. I was talking to my boss with it, he's the COO of the company. Mm-hmm. And for him, it's all about who wants to use these tools? Why do they want to use these tools? How is it going to make them better at what they do? How is it going to help the firm overall in the long run? And that'll be part of our presentation with the associates. This is
right. A week from Thursday.
Yeah.
I know that's on your calendar, on your heart. Anything else you want to cover or tell us or share with, this goes to the law librarian community. Anything we haven't touched on, I haven't asked about?
This is a really fulfilling profession.
Yeah.
And for folks like me who don't like to do the same things all the time, it's great. It means that, every day, I'm really not exactly sure. I mean, I have sort of foundational things that I'm working on. But there's always something in a day that surprises me, delights me, that I'm excited to dig in and try and solve. And for people who like that, this is a great profession, and you can't stop learning. That's another thing. People who are curious and like learning, this is a great profession for that. So, join.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions. We can talk about your old house if you want to for a little bit, or not really.
It's 300 years old this year, my house. The town of Ipswich is a town with less than 15,000 population, but it has the most first period homes in the United States, which means homes prior or built 1725 and prior. So mine is kind of like on the cusp. first part of it was probably
Right.
built before that. And then, there's certain
Right.
areas there's certain Georgian aspects of it, but then, there's others that looks like a ship. There's big, massive beams everywhere. Yeah. Nothing's going to knock that thing down.
Well, I'm seeing another trend here. You've got a house that's 300 years old, so at least part of it was built in 1725, and you started your library career at the longest extant law
It
firm in
was
the country.
intriguing, really, really intriguing. And, it was also one of those places where there were multiple generations of people from the same family working there. Even multiple generations of managing partner. When I
Wow.
first started there, the managing partner ended up retiring a couple of years later. And eventually his son became managing partner. But that was after I was gone. But yeah.
That's pretty cool. I've not heard of that happening very much. That is interesting. Well, Chris, thank you for your time. Thank you for your input. Thank you for your ideas and for sharing those. We appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for thinking about me.
Thanks for listening to The Practicing Law Librarian. Be sure to subscribe and listen to our latest episodes wherever you listen to podcasts. And to learn more about the Practicing Law Institute, please visit pli.edu. To learn more about PLI Plus, which provides electronic access to the full collection of PLI Press publications, and schedule a demo with a member of our team, please visit pli.edu/plus. Please note that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast represent those of the individuals being interviewed and not necessarily those of PLI.